This manhwa commenced with Princess Anhua, who finds herself at the entrance of a grand castle, where she is about to enter into an arranged marriage with a man she has never met. The crowd outside admires her beauty, but Princess Anhua is visibly nervous and unsure of what awaits her. As she walks down the stairs, her eyes widen in shock as she comes face to face with her husband, Kashin, the Archduke of Terran. Kashin greets her with respect and claims that they have met before. Princess Anhua is taken aback and realizes that she has been deceived. Regret fills her as she realizes the mistake she made by agreeing to the marriage, setting the stage for a difficult relationship between them. The story then takes a flashback to 3 months ago, during the West Empire's annual party. Princess Anhua, feeling unwell due to drinking with the knights the previous night, looks out the window and sees people enjoying themselves at the party. She desperately wants to skip the event, but her mother had threatened her earlier, warning that she would be killed if she dared to miss the party. Anhua, contemplating her options and determined to meet the emperor in secret, decides to hide from her angry mother. She imagines her mother chasing after her on a wild horse, filled with fury. Knowing the dire consequences of encountering her mother, Anhua devises a plan to divert her attention by having her mother ask the emperor about her whereabouts. She spots another building within the castle and slides against the castle wall, making her way towards it. With the belief that the emperor is on the 3rd floor, Anhua swiftly jumps towards the building, landing on a balcony. However, her arrival doesn't go unnoticed, as a silver-haired man inside the building, dressed as a gentleman and wearing a mask, notices her presence. Kashin, for that is his name, is surprised to see Anhua and asks her who she is. Lost in her own thoughts and preoccupied with her mission, Anhua barely registers Kashin's question or his identity. She wonders about his identity for a brief moment, but quickly refocuses, realizing that she doesn't have time for introductions. Ignoring Kashin, she jumps away from him, leaving him taken aback by her sudden disappearance. Soon after, Kashin's knights appear, reacting to the commotion caused by Anhua's presence. They tell him that they heard something and ask if he's alright. Kashin turns back to see them and assures them that it was nothing. He smiles and tells them it was just a cute little thieving cat. Meanwhile, Anhua frowns and wonders who the man is, but she shrugs it off, finding his identity to have nothing to do with her. As Anhua peeks through the window on the 3rd floor, she finds the hallway empty, providing her with a stroke of luck. Stepping inside, she sees an abandoned mask and seizes the opportunity to disguise herself. She quickly puts on the mask and blends in with the partygoers. Shortly after, a woman arrives and discovers her missing mask. She begins questioning others about its whereabouts, unaware that Anhua is the one responsible. Taking advantage of the distraction, Anhua discreetly slips away. Navigating through the crowd, she spots the West Empire Supreme Emperor, her superior and uncle, Shikri on the 4th, surrounded by respectful nobles. However, her attention is diverted when she catches sight of her furious mother, the Duchess of Brahita. Gasping, Anhua realizes that her mother is searching for her. Feeling a sense of panic, Anhua quickly makes her escape, avoiding her mother's gaze. Million, a woman nearby, asks the Duchess if her inability to find Anhua is because they are at a masquerade party. The Duchess, with a bitter chuckle, confirms that she doubts her daughter even knows it's a masquerade party. She appears on the side of the room where Anhua is, to Anhua's dismay. It seems as though her mother is deliberately following her. Desperate to avoid a confrontation, Anhua hides behind a pillar, hoping to evade her mother's notice. However, it appears that the Duchess has caught on and is closing in on Anhua's hiding place. As Million moves closer under the Duchess's instruction, Anhua's whole body trembles with fear of being caught. She closes her eyes, preparing for the worst, but suddenly, she hears a voice calling her a thieving cat. Opening her eyes, she sees the silver-haired man from before standing beside her, draping his red cape over her. She looks at him in surprise and asks if he is the same person she saw earlier. Kashin, putting his finger to his lips, urges her to be quiet. The Duchess arrives and apologizes for interrupting them. She is about to inquire about Kashin's companion, but he claims that Anhua is shy. The Duchess politely laughs it off and tells them to enjoy their date before leaving with Million. Anhua breathes a deep sigh of relief, grateful for not being caught by her mother. Turning to face Kashin, Anhua wonders if he truly intended to help her. Kashin asks if she found what she was looking for, prompting Anyer to ask him what exactly she was searching for. He cryptically tells her that she was an uninvited guest. Anyer is taken aback by his lack of understanding and realizes that explaining the situation to him will be challenging. Curiosity gets the better of her, and Anyer asks Cashin why he is allowing her to stay if he knows she wasn't invited. Cashin smiles and confesses that he was merely intrigued. Blushing, Anyer wonders who this man is and assumes he must be a foreigner, since he doesn't recognize her. Cashin further explains that he is a man whose interest was piqued by a thieving cat. Anyer crosses her arms and questions if he called her a thieving cat simply because she jumped over the railing. Cashin chuckles in response to her query. Before Anyer can say anything more, she suddenly feels an overwhelming urge to vomit and decides it's best to leave. She thanks Cashin for his help and vows to repay the debt someday. She unpins her badge from her suit and hands it to him before hastily turning to leave. Once Anyer is gone, Cashin smiles and gazes at the badge in his hand. A man approaches him and asks what it is. Cashin admits he isn't entirely sure, but speculates that it is probably a cat's treasure. The man is surprised to see Cashin in a good mood and questions him about it. Cashin mentions that the emperor is looking for him, alerting the man to the urgency of the matter. Cashin, after a moment's pause, agrees to go along with the emperor's plan. He acknowledges that the West Empire, where they currently are, is more prosperous and wealthy compared to his home, the North Empire. Cashin attributes this abundance to the presence of the Sword Master of Rulgosa, a prestigious title held by only about 100 individuals in history. Most of these sword masters hail from the West Empire and have played crucial roles in saving the empire from destruction. Seated with the emperor and sipping tea, Cashin expresses his desire to meet the renowned sword master personally, as everyone praises their skills. The West Emperor laughs and informs him that the sword master doesn't make appearances even for the emperor himself. Cashin sets down his tea and observes that the sword master effortlessly disregards the emperor's orders. The emperor acknowledges Cashin's observation and admits that he too likes to boast about the sword master, but there's nothing he can do about it. In reality, the emperor is well aware of the true identity of the sword master. It is Princess Anyer. However, he cannot disclose this information to Cashin due to his fear of the Duchess, Anyer's mother. If the fact that Anyer is the sword master were to become known to foreign countries, the emperor would face severe reprimand from the Duchess. Additionally, the Duchess might accuse him of hindering her daughter's marriage plans. The emperor can vividly imagine the intimidating expression on the Duchess's face. Suddenly, Cashin hears a voice emanating from the balcony below and spots the Duchess angrily dragging Anyer by her ear. Anyer yelps in pain while the Duchess pays no attention and scolds her as a naughty girl. Cashin smiles, thinking that Anyer has finally been caught. The emperor notices Cashin's sudden disinterest and continues discussing the intermarriage between their empires. He asks Cashin if he has found someone he likes, revealing the plan to host several parties in the coming days to find a suitable match for Cashin. This union would strengthen the friendship between the North and West empires. The emperor reassures Cashin that any woman would be acceptable, and he encourages him to speak freely. As Cashin sips his tea, he casually tells the emperor that he wasn't sure about his preferences in a potential partner, as long as she met the required standards. However, he adds with a mischievous grin that the more interesting the woman, the better. He then recalls his earlier encounter with Anyer and how she had promised to repay her debt to him. This sparks an idea in Cashin's mind. With a wide smile, Cashin reveals the badge he received from Anyer to the emperor. He confidently declares that he wants this lady as his potential partner. The emperor's mouth drops open in shock as he realizes that it's Anyer badge. Anyer's true identity is that of a hero in their country, the spearhead of the Western Empire's military, and the revered captain of the Golden Dragon Knights. She is the sword master whom everyone looks up to. However, despite her prestigious position and accomplishments, Anyer is considered a nuisance at home because she hasn't gotten married yet. The Duchess, her mother, interrupts Anyer's thoughts and scolds her, emphasizing that young women her age are already finding love and getting married. She mentions an example of Ariel, who is engaged to an account from a neighboring country. Despite her mother's constant nagging and societal pressure, Anyer remains firm in her resolve not to marry. The Duchess then asks her if she knows what people call her. Anyer boldly declares herself as a hero and a sword master, but when she jokingly suggests that people may call her the crazy dog, her mother becomes visibly upset. As the Duchess continues their conversation, she confirms that Anyer is indeed known as the Empire's crazy dog. She remarks that whenever marriage proposals are made, Anyer ends up beating the suitors to near death, causing them to throw a fit. Anyer proudly sighs and addresses those men as weaklings, further solidifying her reputation as a formidable warrior. However, her prideful reaction prompts her mother to slap her on the back with a force that even hurts a swordmaster. Seated on a chair, the Duchess expresses her genuine desire for Anyer to experience love. Anyer massages her stiff shoulders and questions whether love is the sole determinant of a woman's happiness. The Duchess explains that happiness can be derived from various sources, and if Anyer finds contentment in her current way of life, she should hold on to it. Nevertheless, she expresses her concern that Anyer hasn't shown any effort in dating. Anyer furrows her brow as she processes her mother's words of advice regarding dating. The Duchess then drops a surprising piece of information. She reveals that the Emperor is worried about Anyer and has decided to find her a suitable marriage partner. Anyer is taken aback and asks who the chosen candidate is. The Duchess informs her that it is the Archduke of Terran Eugen from the Northern Empire. This revelation shocks Anyer into speechlessness. The Duchess continues by mentioning rumors about the Archduke being the best groom candidate in the North. Anyer's fury rises, and she questions her mother's seriousness in marrying her off to a foreign land. The Duchess coldly states that she will proceed with the marriage because there isn't any man within their empire who would be willing to marry Anyer. This declaration fuels Anyer's anger, and she asks why she should marry a man whom she doesn't even know. However, the Duchess challenges her by asking if she would marry anyone if they didn't follow this course of action, leaving Anyer momentarily hesitant and indicating her mother's victory in the matter. The Duchess smiles and asks Anyer to meet the man first, get to know him for real, and then decide. She further adds that it's been said that he's very handsome. Anyer turns gloomy, to which the Duchess asks her cheekily if she doesn't want her husband to be handsome. This causes Anyer to blush, and she angrily says that she won't meet anyone regardless of who it is. However, 3 days later, her mother reminds Anyer that it's the perfect marriage proposal. A week later, the Duchess also tells her about the man's reputable family and his probability of being a good partner. Anyer retries to ignore her mother, but about 2 weeks later, her mother blackmails her by saying it was her last wish. Anyer finally gives up and confirms to her mother that she will meet the suitor. On the day of the meeting, Anyer got all dressed up. Her mind was filled with all kinds of thoughts. She thought about marrying abroad too, with a foreigner. Even though she has not been married yet, marrying a foreigner risked her freedom. She knows she has no choice but to meet him now. As the Duchess notices her daughter, she exclaims happily and praises her as pretty. Anyer's complexion darkens at the compliment. She thoughts making the other party reject her by turning the tables around. The meeting's venue belongs to the royal family and is to take place in a parlor. A servant guides Anyer and her mother towards the location. Anyer asks the maid if her mother will be present as well, to which she replies that her mother, along with her father and the Emperor, will be present. Anyer turns glum as she thinks about how getting rejected while everyone is present is equivalent to suicide. While her mother conversed with the maid about the pretty interior decor, Anyer knew not all hope was lost. Anyer notices a window and decides she could just disappear from there. Her mother looks at her with widened eyes, but she tries to hide her true expression in front of the maid by swinging her paper fan over her mouth. Soon, a room disappears from sight, turning her mother furious. Anyer was now outside. She notices a carriage appearing. She runs towards it as she thinks of how luck was on her side. As the carriage door opens, Anura is startled to find Cashin inside. They exchange surprised glances, and Cashin jokingly asks if she's wandering again like a thieving cat. Anura realizes that he is the same person she met at the party, and nods in recognition. The timing of their encounter seems almost too coincidental. Just as they process the situation, Anura hears her mother's voice approaching in the distance. Acting quickly, she hops onto the carriage, and Cashin watches her with amusement. Anura requests the carriage to start moving, eager to put some distance between herself and her mother. Cashin remarks that Anura looks like a noblewoman running away from an unwanted marriage. He assures her that she can make use of him, implying that he's willing to help her in her escape. Anura, feeling confused, doesn't fully grasp his intentions. She wonders why he has been assisting her ever since their last encounter, and contemplates whether he knows her true identity. Anura begins to glare at Cashin suspiciously, questioning if he could be a con artist seeking a reward for helping her. Caught off guard by her serious expression, Cashin is taken aback. However, he maintains a smile and assures her that he doesn't want anything from her. Feeling a bit awkward about their current situation, Anura hesitates on asking for further assistance. Suddenly, an idea strikes her, and she widens her eyes as she proposes that Cashin become her lover for just one day, if he truly wants to help her. Cashin grins in response and agrees to play along. The carriage starts moving, and they navigate through the local streets together. Anura peeks outside and asks Cashin where they are going. He tells her that they are going on a date, surprising Anura with his response. Cashin's mischievous grin prompts Anura to look at him in surprise and confirm that she didn't ask him to be her lover. Cashin explains that it would be more effective if many people saw them together as lovers, by creating a public display. Anura's mother would likely hear about it and call off the wedding. He suggests that the more people witness their relationship, the stronger the impact will be in dissuading her mother's plans. His idea suddenly clicks in Anur's mind, and she realizes the whole act was just for the sake of annulling the marriage. Cashin smiles at her excitement and informs her that it is now time for them to get off. They sat down at a dessert shop, and Cashin presented her with a famous dessert. Anura looks at it closely, since a battlefield has always been more important to her than a dessert. Cashin notices some girls gossiping about Anur, and overhears them calling him her handsome lover. The girls also contemplate asking Anur to introduce them to him, causing Cashin's face to turn serious. As Anur takes a bite, she finds the dessert delicious. Seeing a piece of cream on her face, Cashin extends his hands towards his face and cleans it off. This shocks Anura. Cashin goes on to lick the cream and remarks that it's as delicious as it's rumored to be. He smiles and explains to Anura that it was the fastest way to be known as someone's lover. The women present in the dessert shop all turn to look at them in surprise. Anur clutched her fork tightly, and her mouth fell open in shock. She thinks of Cashin as a crazy guy. They go back, and Anur thanks Cashin for helping her. Anur mentally snickers as she thinks of how the date exceeded her expectations, since there will be rumors now of her going out with a guy, and her marriage will definitely be annulled. Cashin grins and reminds her that she owes him a lot. He then asks if she really hates getting married that much. Anur tells him that her parents had arranged it for her. More than that, the Archduke had such a position that he could have gotten married more than once. She took advice from her married sister if he really hadn't married anyone over the past years. Her sister tells her that there might be something wrong with him, or that he must have a mistress. Anur further confesses to Cashin that it didn't bother her that her marriage partner was perfect. But most importantly, the idea of going abroad and living with foreigners is what troubles her. It was the first time Cassin was being treated like a nuisance, and she says that her wishes have come true. Meanwhile, the rumors of Arun having a very handsome lover spread like wildfire. This made Anur certain that the marriage would have been annulled, but it didn't. Instead, her mother assured her that she could marry her secret lover if she wanted to. She tells her she isn't angry at her for running away, and advises her to ignore the scandals. Her words made a nurse sweat profusely. The Duchess continued that she didn't want anything over the top, and was fine as long as she got married. Anur is surprised to see her plan backfire. She decided to answer her mother straightforwardly. She confesses that she doesn't want to get married. The Duchess is taken aback by her daughter's words. She quietly sits down and offers Anur a deal. She calmly asks her to get married for 3 months, and if she doesn't like her partner, she can get a divorce. But the Duchess offers her a condition. She asks Anur to lead a quiet life for those 3 months. If she still doesn't like it after all that hard work, the Duchess promised her that she wouldn't ask her to get married again. Anur instantly nods, confident that she can endure marriage for at least 3 months. Her mother further explains that she can't hit or kill anyone or just blast them off. Anur beams and promises her mother that she will try. However, in reality, she thinks of just killing her partner to return home. Anur's marriage was thus finalized. The news of her marriage lifted the atmosphere of the Western Empire. Everyone was shocked to hear that Anur was getting married. On the other hand, all the knights had gathered in the Emperor's throne room. They were protesting against Anur's marriage marriage abroad. They claimed it was a huge loss to the empire's military forces. However, the emperor left it to Anhua. Concurrently, the news had spread to the Northern Empire as well. All the noblewomen were devastated to hear about Kashin's marriage. Kashin was both the emperor's son and the second in line to the throne. In terms of marriage, he's a man who everyone would choose over the crown prince, as he was chosen by society as number one. The seat of the Archduchess of Terror and Eugene, which many young ladies coveted, is now occupied. New tides were about to approach the Northern Empire. Kashin, who was involved, remained calm. As he scribbled on a piece of paper in his office, he asked his assistant if there was anything else to report. The assistant tells him there is nothing. Kashin closes his eyes as he remembers Shikri on the fourth's reaction when he told him that he wanted to marry Anhua. As Kashin tapped his pen repeatedly on the desk, the assistant confessed that there was something that bothered him. The assistant's worried tone catches Kashin's attention, and he asks what it was. The assistant tells Kashin that a huge troublemaker lies in the dukedom of Brahiat, known as the Empire's crazy dog. He further says that it was hard to obtain information on the Duke of Brahiat, but it seems his identity is attributed to the crazy dog. He further tells him that he heard the dog bite to death if one says something wrong. Kashin places his hand on his head as he thinks about how Anhua has such a violent family member, and wonders if that's the reason she became a tomboy. He smiles at the thought of her, but is brought back to reality as the assistant informs him that the airship is about to arrive. Kashin stands up to leave for the airship, thinking about how Anhua will make a funny face if she sees him again. In the meantime, Anhua's nanny informs her that the airship is about to arrive. Anhua nods disinterestedly. The nanny tells her she can't kill or hit someone just because she doesn't like them, and especially not use her sword all the time. The nanny continues to babble, advising Anhua to speak gently, remain polite and innocent, and put on a smile. It made Anhua ponder what her nanny really thinks of her. In the present time, Anhua walks out, but freezes as she notices Kashin standing in front of her. All their moments together start to make sense to her. She swiftly turns back and walks away. She informs the nanny that she wants to go back, surprising the nanny, who tries to stop her. Kashin steps forward and approaches her. He whispers in Anhua's ear, reminding her of her obligation to repay her debt. This makes Anhua furious, and she stares at Kashin. Suddenly, the nanny shouts to treat the princess like glass, since she's very fragile. Anhua is stunned and turned speechless after hearing the nanny's words. Later, the maid started to look for Anhua as she had wandered off again. Meanwhile, Anhua was hiding in a tree. Kashin could see her from a window and chuckled, wondering how she got up the tree. To him, it felt like adopting a cat, not a wife. Anhua immediately senses someone staring at her and looks towards the mansion, but finds no one there. She got down, and the maids immediately heard her. She hides behind a tree while the maids run away in the other direction. Soon Kashin approaches her from behind, scaring her. She turns around and asks him how long he has been standing there, confused as to why she didn't see any sign of him approaching. He tells her he just came. Anhua stares at him, wondering if Kashin saw her jump down from a tree. Kashin uses this opportunity to tease her and asks Anhua if she really liked him that much. Anhua is shocked, as Kashin explains to her that she was looking at him with such a penetrating gaze that it seemed she liked her face. Anhua turns speechless and tries to come up with an explanation, but fails. Kashin changes the topic and asks Anhua how she felt after meeting a marriage partner who she thought wouldn't turn out perfect. She tells him it wasn't as bad as she thought. Anhua contemplates whether to ask him if he has a mistress or not. The sudden silence between them makes Kashin ask Anhua if she was thinking about something else in front of him. His words make Anhua blush, and she asks him where he learned such cheesy phrases. She also reminds him that they aren't married yet. Kashin smiles at Anhua and tells her it will happen soon. He takes Anuru's hand gently and kisses it, telling her it was too late for her to run away. For the time being, the happenings at Terran Eugen Castle were more boisterous than ever before. Maids and other servants were rushing all over the place, trying to get things done swiftly and accurately. There was only one reason for that. It was due to the fact that today is the castle owner's wedding day. Anuru's nanny cried as Anhua was getting ready for the big day. She weeps for the Duchess to witness this, but Anhua reminds her that she remains alive. Her mother, who could be perceived within a crystal ball, also states that she is very much alive. The Duchess admits her desire to personally attend her daughter's wedding, but Anura assures her that she can still observe it through the crystal ball. She informs Anura that her uncle, the Emperor, has traveled to the Northern Empire to attend the wedding in person. This startles Anura, as it will undoubtedly lead to her divorce, making the aftermath challenging to handle. Soon, Anura is prepared to become a bride. The maids excessively praise her beauty. Yet all Anura can contemplate is the prospect of entering into a loveless union. The Duchess congratulates Anura on gaining a new family, causing her to realize that she is doing this for her mother's happiness. Meanwhile, a gathering of aristocrats has assembled within the wedding hall. Cashin's assistant ponders the situation, finding the suddenness of the impending marriage rather overwhelming. The crowd busily engages in gossip about the newlywed. Some commend her beauty, while others confirm her foreign origin. Presently, the hall doors swing open as the announcer proclaims the arrival of the bride and groom. The nobles gaze upon them with admiration, and Noor was busy thinking whether this marriage was really the right choice to make. The two stood upon the stage, facing one another, while the priest requested their vows. Initially, he inquired of the bride if she swears to love the groom eternally. The word eternally scares Anura as she contemplates whether uttering a false pledge is permissible. Despite her reservations, she agrees, and the priest proceeds to ask Cashin, who also obliges without hesitation. Then, the priest proclaims that they must vow their eternal love with a kiss. Anura becomes bewildered and blushes as Cashin approaches him. He suggests that she run away if she desires to abandon this union, presenting it as her final opportunity. Anura reminds him, with a touch of sadness, that he previously claimed it was too late to escape. Cashin smiles and assures her that it is already too late. He takes hold of Anura's waist and kisses her. The wedding hall erupts with cheers and applause. Subsequently, the priest declares them both married. As Anura gazes at Cashin, she realizes that this marriage is destined for doom. It can either be killed or eaten. The wedding reception incites a lively atmosphere in the town of Taranyajan. The maids hastily escort Anura back to her chamber, declaring that her feet should no longer be overexerted. Conversely, Anura feels absent due to the excessive protectiveness of her maids. She contemplates whether it is acceptable to be in such a state, for she is not weak. Anura recalls the earlier kiss with Cashin, causing her cheeks to flush as she furiously shakes her head. She resolves to forget it and enters her new chamber. As she surveys her surroundings, she discovers that the room exceeds her expectations. It is vast and opulent. Anura settles upon the bed, deciding to rest comfortably now. Fatigued, she wearily closes her eyes, reflecting upon the events of the day. The maids bid her good night as they depart. All of a sudden, Anura realized why they had wished her a good night quite cheekily. It was her first night with her husband. With this, Anur marriage life begins. It remains uncertain whether Anur will fully embrace Cashin as her husband. Additionally, the revelation that Anur is a skilled swordmaster may elicit diverse reactions from Cashin. Remember to subscribe and provide feedback for future videos. Thank you, and see you in the next video.